You talk about this idea of accidental leadership. We get there kind of striving for it, but then you get to understand what it really is, and you go, oh, there's so much more here that I don't know. And that imposter syndrome can really kick in. I know it did for me when I got to the, air quotes, top of my environment. The number of times, Jerry, that I just thought, I really don't know what I'm doing, but I don't know how to say that. And if I tried to say that, they would say, well, then you're not qualified to do this anymore. Or they wouldn't follow me into the next battle, even though my job is to lead them there. And I felt alone in it. And I know we talked to a lot of our clients, thousands of small business owners across the country. They feel isolated in that. And they're not lonely per se, because it's a paradox of they're around a lot of people. So it feels like socially we're engaged, yet internally there's this isolation of, do I really deserve to be here?
Yeah. At the risk of sounding like a fool, I'm going to quote Shakespeare with my Brooklyn accent. So you're all going to have to handle that.
This is great.
But in Henry IV, Prince Hal has been early promoted. We can talk about that because his father has died. And he ascends to the throne of England. And immediately he's challenged by the French. And they move a whole army into Calais, which at this point was English territory across the English Channel. And so he has to raise a battalion, and he sails across the Channel. And it's the night before what's called the Battle of Agincourt. And he realizes that they're outnumbered 10-1. Because it's Shakespeare, of course, they're outnumbered 10-1. And in a soliloquy, he says, "Upon the king, let us our lives, our souls, our debts lay upon the king. O hard condition, we must bear all." It is one of the most poignant speeches about the burden that you just spoke to. Upon the king, let us our lives, our souls, our debts lay upon the king. O hard condition, we must bear all. There's a fallacy in the soliloquy. And the fallacy is, as the king, as the leader, as the one who holds power, it's our job to bear it all. And you take that impulse, coupled with the myth that we're supposed to have all the answers, and you have a prescription for heartache and loneliness. You have the understanding of why we say it's lonely at the top. Because if I tell my employees that I don't know the answer, what if they leave?
Right, exactly.
What if they abandon me? Right? Now, the problem with that thinking is that the leader cuts themselves off from the most valuable resource they have available to them. And that is their team. In that soliloquy moment, Henry loses sight of the fact that he's got a battalion of people who are more experienced than he is. And that he can turn to them and say, "Hey guys, what do you think we should do? What do you think we should do about this battle?" By the way, the English won that battle, so yay.
Good job. It worked out. That would be Shakespeare. They have to win.
That's right. He was a propagandist.
I want you to unpack something. Earlier you said that this whole thing would be a recipe for heartache and loneliness. And I can just imagine many business owners hearing that going, okay, so you got some heartache, you've got some loneliness. That's the price of admission for leadership. Leadership's hard. What's the big deal? Personally, I've experienced that course being run out to its worst case scenario in my own life, to the point of burnout and implosion and anxiety and all this. It hijacked me. But for somebody that has not experienced that, can you say more about what's really at stake if these things aren't tended to?
Sure. There's a couple of things I would say to that. First of all, I want to acknowledge and say, you're right. If you're not having trouble, it's A-okay. And in some level, it's important to just know that this is part of the job. But the truth is, the folks that I speak to think that this is somehow not part of the job.
Mm.
They think that they're doing something wrong because they feel lousy. Right? So that's the first thing I would say. The second and the more important thing is, I'm going to take you back to you, Daniel. You just said it. Okay? And the truth of the matter is, you're not the exception. You're the rule. Now, how do I know that this is true? For the most part, because we're talking about leadership in business, I'm going to be gender specific. We're almost, not always, but mainly talking about men. And one of the leading causes of death for men ages 35 and 60 is slow depression.
Slow depression.
Yeah, showing up in addictive behaviors, alcohol abuse, or toxic behaviors within the home, or divorce, which is a leading indicator of early premature death. So there's this silent group, and there's a psychologist named Terrence Real who wrote a wonderful book about this called I Just Don't Want to Talk About It, Men and Depression. Okay? And so you've got this powerful experience going on. But as they say on TV, but wait, there's more. Several years ago, I was on CNN and I was part of a documentary about mental health in entrepreneurship. And after the documentary, I got a phone call from the head of human resources at one of the largest software companies in the world. And she called and she said, I need you to come talk to our executives. I need you to come in and talk to us. And so I started to probe. I said, what's going on? She said, healthcare claims for depression and anxiety among the children of the executives had skyrocketed in the previous years. I'm going to say this again. Depression and anxiety among the children of the senior executives had skyrocketed. So here's the thing. You want to pay this price? Be my guest. But don't you dare ask your children to pay that price.
It's one of the biggest things I've learned from you is this notion of being able to hold simultaneously different emotions that almost seem competing without having to be binary about it. I always thought, well, if you're sad, you can't also be glad. If you're angry, you can't be nice. You have to be in an angry state. And a lot of your work hits on this, and it's impacted me in a big way. And just being able to say, I actually feel all these things at the same time. And I don't have to give up my man card to feel sad, and I don't have to, et cetera, right? They all go together.
That's right. That's right. The harder thing, see, we teach ourselves that the false grit, the false structure is a sign of our strength. But the thing that takes more strength is the ability to hold the entire mishigas. I'm from Brooklyn, so
mishigas.
a little Yiddish.
I'm from West Texas. We don't use that word in West Texas. I need help.
Okay. Well, okay. It means the whole crazy mess of it all.
Okay.
Together. That takes more strength. What takes strength is to be both strong and soft, firm and gentle, simultaneously, at one and the same time, to create space for sadness and grief, while simultaneously creating space for duty and honor and responsibility.